Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Dodson with my video for discussion board number 4. And the subject that I chose for my class project is Christians and their effect on the abolitionist movement in America. And according to many different sources, the first slaves arrived in America in the year 1619. And it wasn't very long after the slaves got here that the abolitionist movement started. And it was the Quakers who were really influential on starting the abolitionist movement here. In the year 1688, the Quakers drafted a resolution that condemned slavery and condemned the trafficking of men. And in the year 1775, the Quakers, who were led by Anthony Benezet, they formed the Society for Relief of Free Negroes Unlawfully Held in Bondage. And now this group, they only had 4 meetings and they disbanded after their 4 meetings. But this was, the beginning, some small beginning that eventually would grow into a very influential group of people. And they would eventually later go on to form the Pennsylvania Abolition Society. And they were able to, by doing this, they were able to attract more influential members like Benjamin Rush and Benjamin Franklin even. And by the turn of the century, the abolition movement had begun to pick up momentum with the Second Great Awakening. And some of the religious leaders during this period believed that they saw slavery as a national sin, not just as an individual, personal sin. They believed that slavery was a blight on the whole United States and that all America would fall under judgment, under God's judgment for slavery, and not just individual slaveholders. And as they taught this led churches to support abolition as well as other social issues like prison reform and the temperance movement. The Christian involvement in the abolition movement caused a rift in the church, and soon entire denominations began to split over the issue of slavery, and new denominations were formed, mostly along the north and south lines, like the Southern Baptist Convention and the Wesleyan Methodist Church and the Methodist Episcopal Church. And some of these divisions still carry on to this day. I think it was just a few years ago that the Southern Baptists voted not to remove Southern from their name. They voted to continue calling themselves the Southern Baptists. This rift was so great that in the North, some of those who opposed slavery, but they didn't actually support radical abolition, they were hounded for not being hard enough on slave owners. And in the South, some of those who opposed slavery were forced to flee, forced to get out of town to save their life. The Second Great Awakening happened in the South as well, but it was quite different in the South. Down there, they were more interested in converting slaves to Christianity and educating them more than they were about seeing them, be freed from slavery. And in my project, I'm going to include some information and some sections on individual Christian abolitionists and some of their contributions to the movement, like John Woolman and Anthony Benezet, who I mentioned before, Elijah Parrish, Lovejoy, William Lord Garrison, Harriet Beecher Stowe, John Brown. As I researched this, I found it to be a very interesting subject, and I think it has been largely overlooked in a lot of different history classes. And I think it should be taught.